How much screen time should my child have? Now, this is a question that often fills most parents' minds. Today, I would like to discuss the risks associated with too much screen time for children 5 and under, such as proper cognitive, linguistic, and social development. Now, I speak on this topic not only through research, but through my own experience as well, seen in my 3 kids. I noticed at young ages that they were on their tablets and devices way too much. They were watching TV way too much, and it was showing in their behaviors. For instance, they had trouble self-regulating. They almost turned into like little zombies when they were watching it, and when it was time to take it away, it was just full outbursts. And that's when I decided it was time to put an end to this and really crack down on how much they're using these devices. In our society today, it's difficult to escape this, right? Because we see screens virtually everywhere. They're in our pockets, they're in every room of our house, they're out in public when you go to a doctor's office or a little kid's dentist's office. They've got big flat screens so that they can watch it while they're brushing your teeth. I never had that as a kid, so they're definitely growing up in a whole new world. And we as parents and caregivers, we really have to understand the consequences associated with that and be vigilant and monitor just how much they're exposed to. Now, it's my hope that and my goals that I can raise awareness to parents and caregivers that by significantly reducing a child's screen time and replacing it with interpersonal interactions, that they can understand that they're setting their child up for success. So an article done by Niskan Akban with PBS on May 4th, 2017, titled "Toddler Screen Time Linked to Speech Development," states that a preliminary study was done by the Pediatric Academic Societies, and it shows how mobile devices impact speech development. Now, it's difficult to have studies done because not most parents are willingly going to offer up their child and say, hey, put them in this study and they get too much screen time and these kids don't. We don't get a lot of that. So how we get this supporting evidence is by doctors or pediatricians who rely on follow-ups. So when I bring in my kids for their annual wellness child visits, I usually have to fill out a form of how they're doing, and they ask specific questions such as, is your child doing this? Can your child follow 2-step directions? Things like that. Now, Catherine Birkin at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto relied on these types of visits. So her and her team would gather this information from the parents' reports that they would fill out for their children, and they would use a screening tool that looked for delays in communication development. Now, what they found was that the children who had overusage of screen time were more likely to have signs of delay with how they sound out words and how they put words together. So anybody who's around little ones or has little ones would know that you always hear people say, talk to your children, read to them, that means everything, and it's very true. They learn from the personal interactions that they have with us. So watching how our mouths moves when we say certain words, seeing how we say certain things, and watching our facial expressions is how they learn. It's very crucial to them at this age. Now, Radesky, who is the co-author of the American Academy of Pediatric recent guidelines for children's media usage, states that children 18 months and younger should avoid screen time altogether. Unless you're using FaceTime or something like that, it should just be avoided completely. For children 18 to 24 months, they should be watching only high quality programs, and it should be very limited at that. So that includes maybe something like PBS, which is a great educational platform for kids to watch. They kind of learn a lot through them. And then 2 to 5 years old, 5-year-olds should only be watching 1 hour of high quality programming. Now, anybody with little ones are like, that is crazy. And I would think the same thing myself. It's so hard to sit there and monitor everything your kids are watching, but I promise you that it is beneficial for them in the long run. Now, according to Radusky, it's not necessarily the problems with the devices themselves, but how they're being used. So we don't want to use these devices, these educational apps. Some may argue, you know, hey, they're watching these educational programs on there and they're learning from it, which can be true, but they lack the ability to actually retain the information. Repetition is key for kids, and that's how they truly learn. And they're not going to be learning by just watching YouTube videos once. They might retain it for a day or so, but it's not going to stay with them. So she says that it's better to use it as a scaffolding for their learning experiences rather than using it as pure entertainment source. So from a cognitive standpoint, children under 5 learn best from hands-on exploration, and adult interaction, which is crucial for toddlers. They learn best from getting their hands dirty, feeling things. Some of you may have heard of like a sensory activities, which is huge for their cognitive development, and they're not necessarily going to get that from a two-dimensional screen. So there's such thing as a video deficit. So the video deficit shows difficulty in younger children, and they experience difficulties that children experience from two-dimensional screens and trying to transfer that information into our three-dimensional world. So they are lacking the symbolic thinking and the memory flexibility required to transfer that knowledge. So another article stated that they are more likely to have, less likely to have working memory. So working memory is something, for example, somebody giving you directions and then you retaining that information and following the directions and reaching your destination point. So for instance, with a child, it can be, hey, go get me your socks and your shoes and then bring them back to me. And so research shows that there's been a deficit in that as well. As for social development, there's an article by Dr. Jennifer Cross, who has found, based on parent reports as well, that screen time usage for ages 1 and younger have a difficult time with their development skills. And she did a study with 2 and 4-year-olds from a group of nearly 8,000 children, and the report was associated with social skills that were impacted from too much screen time. So things such as communication, identifying emotion, and patience. Another article states how we, with too much screen time, are introducing instant gratification, which is what they get from these videos. So for instance, you know, they don't like a video, they can go on to the next one. They don't like that one, they can go on to the next one. It's just anything they want is at the tip of their fingers. So we want them to learn these important social skills needed later on in life, and they're not going to get that when they're too involved with the screen. You know, then they miss out on, you know, maybe playing with children and learning how to share and things such as that. In conclusion, I think it's very important to raise awareness on this topic. We are raising the next generation of kids, and we want to have strong contributing members to this society, and we don't want to have awkward little kids growing up, or kids that aren't able to self-regulate with emotions, children with irregular sleeping patterns, obesity, all linked to too much screen time. Nobody has ever died from boredom. It's important that we teach our kids it's okay to be bored. They don't need to sit in front of that TV all day. We want to stimulate creativity and imagination. And it's in my hopes that with this knowledge that you'll be able to pass along this information and let anyone you know or maybe introduce a limit on screen times.